is the book club for kids.
It's a book club for kids.
It's the book club for kids.
It's the book club for kids podcast.
It's a bonus edition of the Book Club for Kids. Hi, I'm Kitty Feldy. Last week we discussed Madeleine L'Engle's novel, A Wrinkle in Time, and we were joined by Charlotte Jones-Voigtlis and Lena Roy, who have written a new biography about L'Engle called Becoming Madeleine. They had more to say about their grandmother and her writing world. At what point did you guys know that your grandmother was a writer?
I think we always knew because she was so clear that that is what she did, and we spent a lot of time with her while she was writing. I do remember reading A Swiftly Tilting Planet for the first time because we read it in manuscript in her ivory tower, her office space above the garage.
Well, do describe her office.
It was an office space above the garage, and it was filled with bookshelves and with her books and old manuscripts and stuff that got put in a drawer, but it wasn't a drawer, it was a bookshelf. And she had a huge desk with a typewriter on it. Then it graduated to an IBM Electric and then to a computer. And there was a long couch that we could just sprawl on or lie on the floor and put our feet up on the couch or lie backwards reading. It was a wonderful space. And then it had very large windows overlooking beautiful Connecticut farmland.
And were you allowed in there when she was actually working?
We were, and we were very, very lucky because no one else was. It was her ivory tower, and we shocked our parents and aunts and uncles because they were never allowed in that space. But we were.
Why?
Well, I think we were her favorites.
We were the first grandchildren by many, many years, so.
And we knew how to be quiet. We knew that she was working, and we felt that we could work too. I mean, I think the grandparent-grandchild relationship is very special. There's different kinds of demands. So we knew how to just be with her and not ask for anything and just be very happy to be respected, and we respected her in return.
So how did you find all of these journals? Were they, was it a treasure hunt? Did you inherit them? Because this is just a treasure trove of things that you have used to write this book.
Well, she kept her journals all in a row in that ivory tower and also in her New York apartment. So we have them. And when we were thinking about writing this biography, we didn't want to write a Madeleine L'Engle was born. Sort of anyone could write that. And we missed her terribly. And so we wanted a way to include her voice in it. So we had the journals and also found the letters. And that was kind of a surprise treasure hunt because her mother had kept all of the postcards and all of the letters that she had sent during her years at Smith College and then her years in New York when she would write sometimes 2 or 3 times a day to her before the days of cell phones or Skype. Really, these daily postcards were so important to stay connected to your family. And she kept them all, but they were in envelopes wrapped in shopping bags, rolled around newspapers in an old suitcase that had come up from Jacksonville, Florida when her mother died and then was in storage in various different places for the past, 40 years.
And when did the idea come that you needed to do something with these?
Well, we're celebrating her centennial in November, and she was very, very, very into birthdays, her own birthday. So we wanted to do something to remember her, and that's sort of how it came to be. I'm a writer, so I've always been interested in writing about her. But as Charlotte said, we missed her, and we just thought writing something would be like a love letter to her, and also being the ones who were so close to her, to tell our story from the way she would want it to be told. I think I really feel that she was definitely part of the process, as you could see in the journals and the letters. But her spirit was with us too, giving us permission, being happy that we were doing it. It was really such an honor to be able to do this with Charlotte.
Her love for New York City and that farmhouse in Connecticut, both of those play such a large role in so many of her stories. So talk about where the fiction and the fact, where's that line between those two worlds?
The settings are the same. So the old farmhouse in Connecticut is the farmhouse in Wrinkle in Time, and it's the farmhouse in the Austins book.
Well, she knew she was a writer from very early on, but she didn't just want to be a writer. You know, she said, please give me genius. I mean, talk about a big ask. What was that?
I really don't know, but she had this desire from very, very young, and her father was a writer, and she saw his example. He was a foreign correspondent. He wrote reviews of plays. He wrote his own plays. He wrote fiction, so she saw that as something to aspire to, I think. But then also his story was also not a happy one. He was gassed in World War I when she was born. She was born just after Armistice. And sort of after that, he didn't have much success. And whether that's because publishing is fickle or whether that's because he didn't have the discipline to continue his work, it's a little bit unknown to us. But I think both his positive example of being a writer, but then the negative example of what happens when you feel like a failure drove her.
And professionally, she didn't have an easy road. I always knew that it took multiple attempts to try to get Wrinkle in Time published, but she had a long publishing career before she even got to that point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she did. She had a lot of success in the beginning. She came to New York wanting to be a playwright, and she struggled there too. But she ended up writing fiction. Her first novel was The Small Rain, and then her second novel, Ilsa, had been a play that she turned into a novel. And she had published about 4 books before having kids and then moving to Connecticut, to a small town in Connecticut where she and our grandfather ran a general store. And it was a struggle. She was raising small children and trying to write. And she writes about that struggle, but she also wasn't as much as a failure as she was feeling at the time, because she did publish some things. They did eventually move back to the city and learn some things. And then once she moved back to the city, she published A Wrinkle in Time and was off to the races.
One of the other fun things for people of a certain generation is to think that she married the elder doctor from All My Children. She was married to a wonderful actor.
Mm-hmm. Yes, our grandfather, Hugh Franklin, was an actor, and they met while they were in the theater together. So they met while they were in a production of The Cherry Orchard, and they married in a production of The Joyous Season, which my grandmother would love to repeat as indicative of their marriage. And he, like a writer, making a life and a living as an actor there's no guarantees there, and that was really difficult for him. And he left the theater forever, he said, in the late 40s, early 50s when they moved to Connecticut. But then decided that he really did need to act. And I think one of the things we realized writing this book, because we're older now too, just what a scary decision that was for them, something that we didn't really understand when we were little. And so just like he understood that she was a writer and respected that and gave her the space to do that, she knew that he was an actor, and that if he wasn't going to be happy unless he was acting, that was their marriage, and she knew that.
So as a writer, and having Madeleine L'Engle as your grandmother, and now finding all of these journals where she has her own methodology and treatise about being a writer and what that takes. I mean, how did you as a writer take these? Were they inspirational? Were they a little intimidating?
Well, I think a little of both, because we read the journals from when we didn't know her. I think part of them were meant to be read, but I don't think they were when she was older, because she gave me my first journal when I was 9 to write in, and she said, this should be private, only for you. You want to be a writer, you need to have somewhere where you can write where no one ever is going to see it. You can write garbage, anything you want, just dump stuff out of your head so you can practice writing. So to read her journals and just to see her young aspirations, and my journals are not like that.
Mine are shopping list, so
based on her advice. So yeah. So but as a writer, it is intimidating to have her as a grandmother, because I feel like I can't compare, but then I have her voice in my head saying, you're a writer if you write. And this is what I tell. I'm a writing teacher. I work with Writopia Lab, and there's nothing original under the sun except for our voice, right? So there's only one Madeleine L'Engle, and there's only one Lena Roy. So, and that's what I tell my students, just to keep searching and digging deeper for your own authentic truth and your own characters, and you'll be fine.
Lena Roy works with young writers in New York and Connecticut as regional manager of the Writopia Lab, and is the author of the YA novel Edges. Charlotte Jones Voiklis has a PhD in comparative literature and manages Madeleine L'Engle's estate. So thanks, Charlotte and Lena, and thanks to Politics and Prose for hosting our discussion. We'll be back again next week with a full-length episode. And by the way, if you live in Southern California, drop by the Tustin Library on Saturday, April 13th. It's Comic Orange Day from 11 to 3, and you can meet lots of authors, including me. I'll be signing copies of my Fina Mendoza mystery series, but it's also where you can meet Star Trek fans and Ghostbusters fans and Star Wars fans and learn all about cosplay and more. It is free and will include a link in the show notes for more information. That's this Saturday, April 13th, from 11 until 3. See you there.